Welcome everyone to Inspired by, powered by TAG Network Midlands. Today I am joined by the award-winning founder of Turnkey and Beyond brand, Craig McVoy. Welcome, Craig.
Hi there, Sam.
Thanks for joining me today. So we've got lots of stuff to talk about and I really want to hear about Turnkey, but let's go right back to the beginning of your career. Now, you've been working with brands for quite a lot of it. Was there, I think with most people that work with brands, there's usually one that they fall in love with at the start and that kind of gets them into that world. Was there a brand that you kind of fell in love with when you were younger?
I guess it might sound cliche, but Apple as a brand has always been one that inspires me, and I'm sure lots of people have said that, but I love anything to do with aesthetics. So anything that is particularly looks nice or feels nice or works nicely is something that I would generally go for. So, and then just to think about how brilliant Steve Jobs was really in terms of his creativity and his visionary skills that he had, despite being quite troubled in other areas. So yeah, if I was looking at a brand that was the epitome, I would say it would have to be either Apple, or I do have a love for Aston Martin as well.
Okay, yeah, it's always the big hitters that do it the best, isn't it? So Aston Martin, you've worked with quite a lot of car brands through the years, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been really fortunate to work with people like BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, amongst many different car brands, which as a petrol head is quite a nice thing to be able to do. So yeah, it's been an enjoyable career and very diverse.
Okay, and how did you get into branding in the first place?
So I don't actually work in branding, and this is a question or something that's often misconstrued. So brand means something completely different to me than branding. Branding to me is about the visual identity and the look and feel and what you see, whereas a brand for me is all about how it makes you feel, what it's like as to work with or to deal with or to be part of. So it's a brand is the external facing position of a company. Really, it's the personality of a company. So I came up through the ranks operationally in the corporate world. I managed teams, managed projects before becoming a coup. So in essence, I then covered everything from marketing, transformation, digital, technology, anything to do with how does that brand touch someone else, whether it be an employee or a customer. So yeah, brand to me came about by me literally working from the ground up. I started in operations and finished in operations, but I covered everything in the middle.
So you've really varied career. That's amazing to hear. So when you start working with a brand and looking at how they put themselves together, what's the starting point? What do you look at first?
The first thing for me is that a brand needs to offer something different than everything else that's available. Otherwise, you become something that I call a Me Too brand, which is, you're the same as those people, just offering something slightly different. And very few brands actually manage to differentiate themselves from the competition. And you don't need to be everything to everyone. You just need to be able to offer something very well to a small niche market. So when we start working with brands, it's really trying to hone in and understand what is it that you do that's so different. Why does the world need another brand in this industry or in this sector? And how are you going to stand out to become a default option for a target audience? So that's where we start. Inevitably, a lot of the time people find that really tricky to answer. So there's a lot of work that we do in the background to say, well, you could own this space, or you could own that space, or this isn't done very well. This is already taken by somebody who's absolutely a market leader. So we tend to work through the options first of what you want to be, and then it becomes about how we build that brand to represent what that is that we've created as an identity, really.
Okay, and what are the biggest mistakes you see brands making?
Oh, so there's a lot of mistakes that people make. First of all, they try and be the product that they sell, and that's all. So you can buy a toothbrush anywhere, so why would it make it any difference if it's bought from, you know, from Superdrug, or whether it's a Colgate one, or whether it's a Braun toothbrush. So a lot of people just talk about what they sell, not the problem they solve. So people don't really care about what you sell, they care about what it does for them. So one of the big areas is that people don't create the emotion, or they don't create the connection between what they do and the problem it solves for the customer. And then a lot of the time people are very inconsistent with what they offer. And actually what we really want as people is consistency. So we make about 60,000 decisions a day. We only subconsciously do most of those, and 5% are the things that we have to think about. And most of the time we try and move things into a box that we don't have to think about it. So the consistency for a brand delivering what they do is really important, and that issue that they fix for their target audience should come out really quickly and be easy to associate with for their customers.
Yeah, definitely. So you gave an example of a toothbrush there. Now, I imagine a lot of people are probably thinking there's not much emotional content you can create around a toothbrush, but actually when you drill down into it, there's a lot of stuff you can unpack, isn't there? So how do you help sort of, I don't want to say boring brands, but more boring products or everyday products, how do you help them find the emotionally driven message in there, all of that?
Well, I tend to position brands into one of three boxes, or four if you create the dead wood that a lot of businesses sit in. But your offer either creates more pleasure for someone, or it creates more time for them to spend doing things they love to do. So everything that sits in the middle of all of that is about, I either want what I'm doing right now, I either want it to be something that never ends because I really enjoy doing it, or I want it to be done quicker, more efficiently, more effectively, so that I can get on to doing the things that I really want to do. And then it's all about the pleasure that sits within that barrier. So if something is particularly boring, we want to make it as easy as possible to get it done and dealt with quickly, consistently, so that you can focus on doing the things that are quite interesting more than anything else.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Okay, so you have Beyond Brand, which is one of your businesses, and you are also the founder of Turnkey. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how you created Turnkey?
Yeah, sure. So Turnkey is about a year old, or coming up for a year old now. And the idea for it started pre-pandemic. I was working with a lot of startup brands on a pro bono basis to help by mentoring on some accelerator schemes, or on different audiences that I felt I could help, but that my fees would be well and truly outside the pay range. And a lot of the time working with those startups, we got a lot of value driven into the business to accelerate them quickly. And they would often ask me if I would become a strategic advisor for them and then take some equity, to which I always declined politely, but said, I think you need more than just me. I think you need a team around you that could help you. And I'd also seen at the time lots of startups give equity away, and then 6 or 12 months down the line, they needed a different person. So they were in a position where they were giving equity and then had to either try and claw it back or give more equity away to somebody else. So when the pandemic hit, and as like most of us, we had a lot of time on our hands then, I started to think, what would it really look like? What would that proposition need to look like in order for a startup that could really grow quickly into a scale up? What would they need? And what's the team that would need to sit around them? But also understanding this is a board they couldn't afford. So this is a set of people that they can't pay for it out of their own pocket. So how would that match come together? What would we do? So Turnkey was created to deliver a portfolio of startups where we work intensively with them as part of their team for 18 months, and then we let them fly. So we move them through 3 different stages. They have a proposition stage where they really start to understand the basics. What is it they need? What's the plan? What's our growth strategy look like? How can we make sure we've got all of the things that we need covered for in a strategy? And then we move from that foundation layer into something called fuel, which is about how do we give them the resources that they need in order to grow. So everything from the right recruitment, the right team, they would need the right funding, the right environment. How can we surround them with the right things that they need? So the fuel is all about giving them all the resources they need to make sure that that foundation plan is implemented. And then the final stage is flourish, where we help them to implement that plan. So we've got all the resources we need, we've got the plan, let's help you to get it moving and take you to the first stage of growth. And then you can generally move forward with that from then. And we fix the problem about them not being able to afford it by taking a slither of equity from their business. So we don't actually charge, in Turnkey, we don't actually charge anybody anything for being one of our ventures. We only take on 6 ventures a year. And within that, we give them probably about £200,000 worth of what we call sweat equity, which is us putting in time, energy and effort into making them grow. So that was the proposition. And then I had to find the dream team that would sit into those roles, which is where we're at now, where we've got an amazing team that sits behind that.
Yes. How did you choose your dream team? Were they people you already knew? Did you have to kind of convince people and turn their arm, or were people really happy to jump on board with it all?
You know, I've never had to convince anybody about Turnkey at all, ever. So
Right.
and that goes from people who want to be part of it as a venture to people who want us to work with them, and it's never needed convincing. And that's how you know you've got a really solid proposition. You asked me about, you know, what's the kind of work you do with brands. You know, when you've got a proposition that just sells itself really quickly. So originally, Turnkey was supposed to be, I guess, a portfolio of 50 businesses, a pension for all of the people involved to be able to have as their retirement. Every single person who's part of Turnkey has got their own successful business. They're already really prolific people. And I thought it would be very difficult to get people to come on board. But when you explain to them what the vision is, everybody wanted to be part of it. So I've got a phenomenal network of people that I know. I was very fortunate to be able to reach out to them, and everybody who I did reach out to absolutely wanted to be part of it. I do have to sometimes give myself a little bit of a shake in the morning to wonder how I've managed to get such a good team, but they're all amazing. And they love it just as much as I do. So yeah, it's never been difficult. We originally thought that that's all we would do, would be the ventures side, but very quickly what happened is that when we started to become known in the city or in the Midlands, a lot of organisations that we spoke with at the time were investors or enterprise universities, different accelerators, different co-working spaces, like the Bruntwood space I'm in today. And they took one look at our team and said, could we drop your team into our organisation and you work with our startups, and we'll happily pay you to do so. So we've now got an advisory division. It's not the reason we set Turnkey up at all, but what it means is that we work with a lot of different entrepreneurs. We see a lot of founders every single day. We help them to grow, and some of those businesses become part of Turnkey in terms of the ventures division. So yeah, we've created a really unique flywheel that is driving value for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I bet you get so many people asking to be on it now as well. So with the dream team, how did you choose sort of which categories to bring people in on? Were there some areas where you thought maybe you might have needed them to start with, but actually it's ended up they're in a different role, or how's that planned out?
Yeah, I mean, the team has changed slightly from its original when it first launched. It's been tweaked ever so slightly, but not much at all, in that we've grown the value that we offer rather than it be the original set. So we really looked at entrepreneurs and spoke to them and understood what it was that they needed, and then understood which of those skills would be worth giving equity for and which things wouldn't. So which things should you be paying for in cash and which things would you need in terms of helping. So we've got a core team in Turnkey that I cover the strategic side and the growth and brand. We've then got a CTO who covers tech. We've got a mentoring lead who covers how to build their business on a day-to-day basis, and they operate as the glue between our team and the ventures team. They're a sounding board and a trusted advisor. And then we've got a specific expert who looks at raising money and raising funds. They deal with all of the data, the shareholders agreements. They deal with all of the legals that sit behind raising money, investing. We've then got an expert who looks at HR and legal advice in terms of talent acquisition, because you're going to need to build a really good team, so you're going to need that sorted. We've got a sales expert who goes out and works with them to drive their sales strategy and get those first customers of real significant value. And then we've got a CFO who is all about the numbers. So have you got the right financial plans in place? Have you got the investment debt? Have you got your investment strategy in the right place? And finally, we've got a commercial lead who looks at things like pricing. Where do you sit in the market compared to everyone else? So as a core team, they're surrounded by a really strong set of skills, but underneath that layer, we have a set of trusted partners as well. So we cover all of the things that you should be paying for that don't require you to give equity away. But with our partnerships, we've got the best of breed of people who can do that for you, and you know that you're going to get a good price for it, and you're not going to get ripped off. You're not going to get a bad outcome. And people sometimes would say, oh, maybe you should charge or take a percentage of that, but we don't. We want them to be in the right hands of the right people. So for things like accountancy or IP or trademarking, anything to do with PR, marketing, web, digital, all of those skills, all of those products sit out of it, and they can get a good deal on those, as well as being part of our portfolio.
It all sounds amazing. So how do you choose which startups you're going to work with?
Yeah, I mean, there's some phenomenal startups in the region as well. So we do get asked by a lot of people to be considered. I'd say we probably take about 1 in 10, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 1 in 15. But the criteria that we work to is that they must be capable of high growth potential. And what that means for us is that they need to be able to get to a 10 million revenue within 5 years. So if they can't do that, doesn't mean they're a bad business, just means that they're not right for our proposition. But if they've got the opportunity to become 10 million plus revenue in 5 years, then we absolutely can help them get there quicker, and probably take them on from there to be in 100 million. So yeah, it's about picking the right ones that we can help. We tends to be people who have got phenomenal skills in what they've invented or that they've created, but they don't have the business background. So they need a team wrapped around them that can turn it into a commercial success. So we don't have a specific sector. We're sector agnostic. So we'll work with people in various different areas. And actually that makes it really good fun, because we could be dealing with different businesses each day. But they need to hit that kind of of a criteria in their financial projections, and also be the type of person that we can help to mold, or people that we can help to mold, because if not, there's no point in them putting us around them as a team.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Okay, so what are the biggest challenges that startups come to you with? What are the things you're dealing with day to day?
Most of the time, startups know what they want to get for their business, as in they know where they want to end up, but they don't know how to get there. They don't know what the journey is to get there. They don't know how to unlock those doors. And more importantly, they probably don't necessarily focus or prioritize on the right things at the right time. So for us, it's about stripping it all the way back to understanding, will this make the boat go faster? Will it take you on that journey quicker? And what are the things that you need to consider? What are the blind spots that you've not thought about? How can we stop you from failing on that journey along the way? Because as a region, we've got one of the largest setups of startups in the country, but unfortunately they don't all succeed and a lot of them fail. So we've got a real position in the market that's unique around how can we take the best of those and make sure they succeed rather than fail on that journey by giving them the right direction.
So how important is networking, do you think, for early stage startup founders?
I think network's important for everybody. I wouldn't have found my dream team without networking. I met all of them by being in networks across the city and across the country. So there's no way that I would have found that team. And in fact, you could say, well, I wouldn't have a business today if I hadn't networked. The one piece of advice I would say is it's about being in the right rooms with the right people. So you can network night and day with, there's an event everywhere. You can go to the opening of an envelope if you want, but that won't necessarily make you more successful. It's about being in the right room with the right people that you can help and that they can help you as well. So it becomes a mutual agreement of help, but the right room is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what are some of your favourite networking events in Birmingham to go
to? I get involved in very different networks now. TAG's always been fantastic in terms of bringing together young professionals with people in the city who are wanting to give back and wanting to help. So I always enjoy a meeting at the TAG Network. But I have recently started to be involved a lot more in the educational space. So Bruntwood has some fantastic events. So do the universities, Aston, University of Birmingham, Steam House. These have fantastic events that you can attend. And also we're doing a lot more with the Department of International Trade. So DIT events bring together people who are looking to import or export. So there's a really good set of people in those areas. For me, it might be different for somebody else, very different.
Okay, and do you have any tips for any founders who have, say, gone to a networking event, they've met someone that they think could be really beneficial to their business, but they don't know how to approach that sort of introduction conversation? Have you got any tips for how to approach that?
Yeah, I would say that the amount of separation between you and the person you want to speak to is a lot smaller than you think. So the fact that you were at an event with somebody that you want to speak to, you can use tools like LinkedIn to find them and then find people who know them, and ask them to facilitate an introduction. Doesn't always work, but even if that's out of range, then just use LinkedIn to mention the event that you actually met them at, and then talk to them about that. Most people will connect, providing you're not looking to sell to them. So, there's nothing worse on LinkedIn than having a connection request with somebody who's then immediately looking to sell to you. You've got to get to know people. Business is about relationships, and therefore try try just connecting with people, commenting on their posts, being interactive, and being a good person to be in a network with. And then the business will follow generally. If you're good at what you do and you're very good with people, the business generally follows pretty quickly.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you mentioned earlier that you started out just before Turnkey, where you were mentoring lots of different people and different businesses and things like that. Do you have a mentor yourself, or have you ever had a mentor yourself?
I've always had a mentor, or certainly for the last 20 years, I've had mentors, and they've changed. They've not been the same person each time. So I think somebody as a mentor generally gets you from one place that you need to be to another, and then it's time to move through onto a new mentor. Because again, the person who gets you from one place to another isn't the person who takes you to the next stage. So I think it's really important to have a mentor at all stages. And that person can be anybody. It doesn't have to be an official title. It can be somebody who you just meet and talk through the things that you're working on every 6 months or so. I've got one person that I speak with on a 6-monthly basis. We just have a coffee, talk about what I'm doing, and they give me their thoughts, and they're quite brutal actually. So normally if I know that I'm coming away from that coffee and I've got good feedback, I know I'm doing the right things, because I will definitely find out that I'm not otherwise as well. So yeah, I think it's about having somebody that has trodden the path that you're going on, and that can help you to get there by teaching you all of the things that they did that you can avoid. If you can avoid the potholes, then that's the easiest way to get from A to B.
Yeah, definitely. I like that sort of mix between support and challenge, and making sure you've got a little bit of a balance of both. Definitely. Okay, so yeah, you mentioned earlier that you work with startups that have the potential to grow within 5 years. Where do you see Turnkey in 5 years' time?
Turnkey has just been a phenomenal journey, and I think about when we started, it was just a dream of helping startups in general around the ones that could grow, and it's become so much more now. So before or at Christmas, we made a decision that we were going to support underrepresented founders as well. So because the figures are just phenomenally terrible. So at Christmas, or in our 2023 strategy, we said we want 20% of our portfolio at least to be underrepresented founders, whether that be female founders, gay founders, black founders, the people who are struggling to get help but have phenomenal ideas. So we are working now heavily on how we can make a difference to those areas. And actually, what we found is that the natural people who've come to us, 75% of our portfolio sit in that camp anyway. We didn't go out and target them. It wasn't an exercise of saying go and find them, but maybe by being more open about those areas, people found us. And we've got some phenomenal businesses in our portfolio now, and 75% of them are either black or female founders. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, making sure we move forward with. Turnkey's now looking to work heavily with the city and the growth companies, the West Midlands Combined Authority, about how we can help to grow the city, not just a startup, but how can we make the city more successful around innovation and investment and building those differences. So I think now we're in a position where we want to run some real programs that make a difference, not just tick a box by putting X number of businesses through a program. That's not our purpose. We're looking at really making a difference by making sure that when they come out of it, that they are a better business and that they've moved on to better things. And then I think what will happen is, once we've got the turnkey model working really well in the West Midlands, there's a natural way of us then creating turnkey London, turnkey Manchester, and wherever else we think that there is a market that we can help. So the plan this year, certainly for the next 12 months, will be to get Birmingham and the Midlands working extremely well. Then we'll see if we can apply that model to other areas in the country as well.
Go global, Turnkey worldwide. Love it. It's been really great to hear how passionate you are about supporting early stage founders and new business and just the growth of the region in general. What do you love most about what you do?
I love to make a difference. So being able to see that we are taking somebody from where they are now, and by the time we leave them, they've done what they wanted to do. So I like to work sometimes with the underdog as well. So I really enjoy someone who's not necessarily had that privileged background or had the easy route, but we've enabled them to get where they rightly deserve to be. So I really like to make a difference, whichever angle you look at that. It's about how can we create something really special. And Turnkey's model, if you think about it, we don't get paid or we don't win with our ventures unless they do. So we're giving our time and energy and effort, and if they don't win, then all of that has been for nothing. So we're invested in our businesses that we work with. So we absolutely want that to be something that continues, where it's a win-win situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many exciting things going on in Birmingham and the West Midlands at the minute, and it's just great to hear someone so passionate about it all and wanting to champion the region like that. It's amazing. Okay, so I've got 3 questions I'm asking everybody at the end of their interview. First of all, what's one piece of advice you wish you'd been given at the start of your career?
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give everyone is that it's not just about the task. So going out and reaching the destination is not enough. You need to bring the people on that journey with you. So I think that my journey would have been far easier had I placed as much importance on the people around me as I did getting to the destination or completing the task. So I would say anyone who can bring people on that journey with you, you're gonna do a lot better. So don't ignore the people. They are the thing that's going to make the difference between you getting somewhere and not. So that would be my first tip.
Love that. Okay, and what is one book, podcast, or talk you would recommend to people to listen to or read?
Well, I'm not going to recommend my own book. That'd be a bit tricky. So I would suggest there's a book that I think is the best book I've read in my career, and it's the one that started me off wanting to learn more. And it's by a gentleman called Jim Rowan, and he's a phenomenal coach. So he was a phenomenal coach, I say. He taught Anthony Robbins. He was the person who taught him, and it's called The Art of Exceptional Living. It's only about an hour or so long. It's an audio book, but people who get those basics right will be in a very good place for success. So that was definitely my recommendation. Although I've read loads of really, really great books, that's the one I would start with.
Yeah, I love that you've kind of looked to who's like the best coach in the world at the minute and then gone, right, who taught him? And then gone, that's what I want to learn. That's cool. I like that. Okay, and who is one person who's really inspired you throughout your career?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I mentioned Steve Jobs. He's certainly somebody who I think has done amazing. I like anybody who thinks outside of the box. So I think somebody like Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos, somebody who has literally thought, this is something that I can do that's going to make a massive difference that's not being done today, and they've completely changed things. So it, again, could sound very cliche, but I look at all the different entrepreneurs that have really done well, whether that be Richard Branson or or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, but all of those people have done amazing things. And I think that by studying them, you can then try and apply some of that logic in your own thoughts. So there's no one single individual, but I would say I've always considered a lot of those. And some of the dragons are interesting if you read, about some of the dragons' journeys as well. So it's about surrounding yourself and looking at multiple different people who have done really well, because you can learn from that, and also to learn from the people who failed as well. So, looking at all of those people who've gone on a journey and not made it and had a bad outcome, you can learn as much from failure as you can from success. So that would be my advice there.
Love that. Okay, Craig, if people want to find out more about you and your work and Turnkey, where can they find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I use that platform more than anything else. So if they want to see more about what's going on, then that's the place to find me.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. There is so much to unpack there, and I feel like I've got loads of research to do on all of the entrepreneurs that I kind of want to emulate in my career now. So thank you so much for joining me.